After nearly 2 decades with WWE, Sheamus has finally revealed why he decided to walk away. His explanation has surprised plenty of wrestling fans, especially after everything he accomplished with the company. But there's more to the story than anyone expected. Let me break it down. Let's get straight into it, because this is the part everyone's been asking about. Reports broke that Sheamus' existing WWE contract was set to expire in the imminent future, with the former WWE champion opting not to sign a new one with the company. A decision that reportedly came after WWE approached Sheamus with a restructured contract extension offer, which he quickly turned down. That word restructured is the whole story here. It's corporate language for a pay cut. According to Fightful Sean Ross Sapp, the situation was blunt. WWE approached Sheamus about a restructured contract extension while he was out with an injury, and the Celtic Warrior swiftly rejected their offer. Not considered it. Not went back and forth for weeks. Swiftly rejected. That's a man who already knew his answer before they finished the sentence. And here's the detail that makes this whole thing land different than a normal roster cut. Fightful's Joel Pearl was clear that it should be reiterated Sheamus turned down a contract extension, and he was not released, and once he's done, he is out. No security detail walking him out of the building. No dramatic release announcement. Just a quiet expiration date and a guy who decided he wasn't signing back up. Dave Meltzer at the Wrestling Observer laid out exactly why WWE made this offer in the first place. And it's not pretty. For Meltzer, this was a case of Sheamus being offered a pay cut and deciding to leave WWE rather than take that reduced salary. With WWE's parent company, TKO, happy to pay incredible money to top stars who drive business, but less keen to pay big money to talents who don't have any notable impact on business, highlighting Sheamus' age and the fact that he's been injured a lot in recent years. 48 years old, coming off shoulder surgery, and getting compared to a professional athlete on the back nine of his career. Meltzer went further, comparing the whole situation to how a real sports franchise operates, cutting older, injury-prone players regardless of legacy. Now, if this sounds familiar, that's because it is. This exact scenario played out just months earlier. The New Day's Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods departed the company for the same reason earlier this year, leaving everyone shocked. Same offer, same restructuring, same result, no. So the reactions started rolling in almost immediately, and they weren't quiet. AEW's world champion MJF didn't waste a second. Within hours of the news, the AEW World Champion called out Sheamus following the report of his WWE exit, posting an Instagram story referencing a back-and-forth they'd had on Twitter years back. Caption, "Bring that smoke, O'Shaughnessy. That's not a farewell message, that's a challenge." Thrown out the moment the ink on his WWE departure was barely dry. But not everyone in AEW was thrilled at the idea of him showing up there. Brian Alvarez reported a very different mood behind the scenes at Tony Khan's company. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Live, Alvarez said he'd spoken with several people in AEW about the possibility of Sheamus signing, and multiple people responded with, "Are we really gonna take this guy?" While making clear the reaction wasn't personal, since everybody he talked to insisted they genuinely liked Sheamus. The problem wasn't the man, it was the math. The concern revolved around the fact that AEW already has a deep roster, with many contracted wrestlers already struggling to secure television time, and adding another name would only make that worse. Then there's the reaction from inside WWE itself, from the locker room he's spending with for 2 decades. A source close to WrestleVotes Radio pointed to something that had been simmering for a while: friction over something as small as his entrance music. The report suggested a downward spiral in Sheamus' relationship with WWE since the moment his theme song got changed, with word that he'd constantly tried getting his original entrance music back, and it was never the same after that switch. Sounds minor, but in wrestling, the little things, the music, the spot on the card, the storyline you get handed, those add up into something much bigger. And one more voice worth hearing. A current WWE name reacting to the exit put it in stark terms about what loyalty even means anymore. In this company, reportedly questioning aloud what a lifer is even supposed to be. After watching someone with Sheamus' history walk, that's the temperature right now. Nobody's calling this a normal goodbye. So we've got the contract, we've got the rejection, and we've got a locker room reacting like something changed. But to understand why Sheamus said no this time, after 19 years of saying yes to everything WWE asked of him, you have to go back to where this whole thing started. Because the man who just walked away is the same man who once walked in as an underdog. Nobody expected to matter. Before any of this, before contracts, before pay cuts, before restructuring, there was just a guy from Dublin trying to make it. Stephen Farrelly is an Irish professional wrestler who began his professional wrestling career in 2002 on the European independent circuit. Nobody outside hardcore wrestling circles knew his name. He was grinding on small shows, building a look and a style that would eventually turn heads at the one company that mattered. That happened in 2007. Sheamus has been with WWE dating back to 2007. Signed alongside Drew McIntyre and Wade Barrett after the trio impressed during a UK tryout. 3 names, 1 tryout, and all 3 would go on to become world champions in their own right. That's not a coincidence, that's a scouting hit most companies dream about. But getting signed and getting over are 2 completely different things. He signed with WWE in 2007 as part of their developmental territory Florida Championship Wrestling. That's the minor leagues of pro wrestling, small crowds, unglamorous venues. Learning the ropes literally and figuratively. Most guys spend years there and never sniff the main roster. Sheamus didn't have that problem for long. On the 30 June 2009 episode of ECW, Farrelly made his unannounced debut as a villain under the shortened ring name of Sheamus, quickly defeating local competitor Oliver John, a pale, red-haired Irishman with a temper and a killer look. Dropped into WWE with almost no fanfare. Nobody in the audience knew what they were watching yet. Then came the run that made him. He got moved to Raw, started stacking wins, and the company clearly saw something. The following night on Raw, Sheamus won a breakthrough battle royal for wrestlers who had never won a world championship, to become the #1 contender to John Cena's WWE Championship. That's the fast track. 1 battle royal win, and suddenly he's in line for the top prize in the company against its biggest star. What happened next is the stuff that gets replayed in career retrospectives. At the contract signing immediately afterward, Sheamus put Cena through the table, and the Raw guest host Jesse Ventura announced it would be a tables match. And on 13 December at the TLC pay-per-view, Sheamus defeated Cena to win the WWE Championship. His first championship in WWE, making him the first Irish-born WWE champion. Think about the scale of that. A guy who debuted on WWE television just months earlier was already pinning Cena clean for the top title. He captured the major title in just 166 days since his debut, making it the 3rd shortest time to capture a title in company history. That's not a slow burn, that's a rocket ship. From there, the championship runs kept coming. He didn't stop at one reign. On 20 June at Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view, Sheamus won a Fatal 4-Way match, following interference from the Nexus that allowed him to pin Cena, winning the WWE Championship for the 2nd time, and being named the 100th WWE Champion in history. 2 title reigns within his first year on the main roster. He built rivalries with names like Triple H, Randy Orton, and eventually carved out his own lane as one of the most dependable, hardest-hitting big men on the roster. Over the years that followed, the trophy case just kept filling up. He became a 4-time world champion, adding the World Heavyweight Championship to his resume, alongside multiple United States Championship reigns and 5 tag team title runs. He won a Royal Rumble. He won Money in the Bank. He won King of the Ring. Put simply, he became the 2nd wrestler after Edge to achieve all 3 of those career-defining accomplishments. There are Hall of Famers with less on their record, but titles weren't the whole story. What made Sheamus different, what made him last 19 years instead of 5, was the willingness to change with the times. He morphed from a snarling monster heel into a beloved brawler, then into half of one of the most entertaining tag teams of the 2010s alongside Cesaro, then into an elder statesman still throwing forearms with guys half his age. Somewhere in that evolution, he became the guy locker rooms respected. Not because he was the flashiest, but because he never stopped showing up and delivering. That respect is exactly why his exit hit different than a typical roster churn story. This wasn't some mid-card talent nobody would notice leaving. This was a foundational piece of WWE's last 2 decades, walking out the door. And the thing that finally pushed him there wasn't age, and it wasn't burnout. It was one title he could never get his hands on, chasing him right up until the end. Here's the part of Sheamus' story that makes his exit sting even more. For nearly his entire run, there was one championship that stayed just out of reach. No matter how hard he chased it. The Intercontinental Championship. Everything else he collected, this one he never could. It wasn't for lack of trying. His pursuit of that title produced some of the most acclaimed matches of his entire career. His most acclaimed showdown for the title came at Clash at the Castle in 2022 against Gunther. And even though Sheamus failed to dethrone the then Intercontinental Champion, he earned the respect of the crowd, filling up Principality Stadium in Wales, with almost everyone on their feet applauding the resolve he showed, pushing a younger, more agile champion to his limits. That's the kind of match wrestling fans talk about for years, and he still walked away without the belt. He got another shot the following year, with the stakes raised even higher. They shared the ring again at WrestleMania in 2023 with the addition of Drew McIntyre, tearing the house down in a Match of the Year contender. But again, it was Gunther who kept the Intercontinental Championship, denying Sheamus the chance to become a Grand Slam champion at the grandest stage of them all. 2 chances on 2 of the biggest stages wrestling offers, and both times the title stayed with someone else. By 2022, that Gunther reign had become historic in its own right. Sheamus had an acclaimed feud with Gunther over the Intercontinental Championship in 2022, during the Ring General's record-setting 666-day reign, before Sami Zayn, not Sheamus, eventually ended it at WrestleMania 40. He wasn't just losing to a champion. He was losing to a man building one of the longest title reigns in company history. And even when that record-breaking reign finally ended, it wasn't Sheamus standing there at the finish. The frustration eventually spilled out publicly. In an interview years back, he'd already admitted how exhausting the chase had become, telling Chris Van Vliet flatly that he was tired of asking for it, all out of asking. That's not a man who'd made peace with missing out. That's a man who'd been carrying that title shot like a splinter for years, hoping the story would eventually turn his way. And in the weeks right before this exit became public, it looked like it might. Fans noticed him teasing something on social media. Before this, he had teased a comeback to the Stamford-based promotion via his official X-Twitter account, by repeatedly hinting at capturing the WWE Intercontinental Championship. Memes, cryptic posts, callbacks to the title that had eluded him. WrestleTalk even noted he'd been posting memes about never becoming the Intercontinental Champion, which it seemed was him teasing a return from injury to go after the title. Right up until the moment it became clear that isn't what was actually happening at all. Because underneath the title chase, there was a much bigger injury story slowing everything down. Sheamus' final WWE match saw him teaming with John Cena and Rey Mysterio to pick up a win over Dominic Mysterio, JD McDonagh, and Finn Balor on a November 2025 episode of Raw. And he'd undergo shoulder surgery later that month, which kept him on the sidelines throughout the following year. That match happened to be historic for another reason entirely. It turned out to be the last Raw appearance of John Cena's in-ring career, meaning Sheamus' final WWE moment is permanently tied to Cena's final one too. The recovery dragged on far longer than fans expected. The Celtic Warrior underwent shoulder surgery in December 2025, and many expected him to return ahead of WrestleMania 42, but that comeback never materialized. Month after month of silence, punctuated only by the occasional gym photo, kept the speculation alive that maybe finally he'd come back healthy and finish what Gunther had denied him twice already. Then, just weeks before the exit news broke, there were signs of genuine progress. Sheamus shared photos from the WWE Performance Center on Instagram, showing himself back inside a WWE ring alongside training partners, with one image highlighting rope burn scars on his back, often a sign of intense in-ring training, suggesting he was making real progress in his recovery. Fans allowed themselves to believe it. The comeback tour looked like it was finally starting. That belief is exactly what makes what happened next land so hard. So here's where the pieces actually come together. And it's not about wins or losses in the ring at all. It's about a number on a piece of paper. Multiple sources converged on the same detail once the exit became public. This wasn't a creative dispute, and it wasn't burnout from the grind. According to reporting, the issue was not that Sheamus no longer wanted to wrestle for WWE. Instead, the disagreement came down to money, with the former world champion offered a new deal significantly lower than his current contract, leading him to decline it. A pay cut, plain and simple, presented to a guy still recovering from shoulder surgery. And the timing of that offer raised eyebrows on its own. The extension was a restructured offer that would have resulted in a pay cut, and it was presented to him recently after his shoulder injury, which had sidelined him since November. Approaching an injured 48-year-old with a reduced offer isn't exactly the gesture of a company signaling it values his future. What makes this messier is the contract confusion surrounding the whole situation. Reports conflicted on exactly what deal he was even walking away from. One version said the Celtic Warrior previously said he signed a 5-year contract extension in 2025, which would put its expiration years down the line, not now. But other reporting pointed to something shorter. Sheamus seemingly signed a new contract with WWE in September 2024. So if that's the case, it appears to have been only a 2-year deal. Either way, something had clearly shifted from whatever he thought he'd signed originally, and Fightful's own team flagged the inconsistency live on air, noting his original deal supposedly wasn't due to expire until 2029, which simply didn't line up with him being a free agent now. What's not in dispute is the company-wide pattern this fits into. TKO, WWE's parent company, has been running the same playbook across its veteran roster, and it's not subtle. Word of WWE wanting to restructure talent contracts isn't new, as the company reportedly sought to do the same thing with a number of other stars in recent months. Some names, like Sheamus' old rivals Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, rejected the corresponding pay cut, while others accepted it to remain with WWE. So there's a visible split forming in the locker room, those who took the cut to stay and those who walked instead. Meltzer's read on why WWE is doing this now cuts right to the corporate logic behind it. TKO is interested in paying large amounts of money to wrestlers who can drive business, but they're less inclined to pay those who don't, comparing their practices to sports teams that often release older, injury-prone players, pointing out that Sheamus is 48 and has experienced multiple injuries in recent years. It's cold, but it's consistent. This is a business decision dressed up as a roster move, and it's not landing well with the people still on the roster. One report described the mood bluntly. WWE stars are not happy with the entire contract restructuring that TKO has been doing, and they were said to be unhappy when the New Day's news became public, with sources saying it's safe to say everyone is very annoyed it has happened to Sheamus. That's not one disgruntled voice. That's a pattern of frustration building show after show. Part of that frustration comes from how these exits are being perceived publicly versus what's actually happening behind closed doors. The gap matters to the people still working there. One report laid it out directly. Several people are unhappy with how it comes off to fans, like the stars are leaving because they simply didn't want new deals, rather than the truth that the contracts being offered are so much smaller than what they're already on. That distinction matters a lot to a locker room watching their peers get lowballed one by one. Even Fightful's own analysts noted how tricky the optics were. It should be reiterated that Sheamus turned down a contract extension and wasn't released. Once he's done, he's out with no 90-day non-compete. Just Stephen Fairley, professional wrestler, doing whatever he wants once the contract ends, after being moved to the WWE alumni section. No dramatic firing, no walkout segment on Raw. Just paperwork quietly expiring and a locker room watching it happen in real time. One WWE insider connected the dots even further, tying the frustration to a wider mood. The veteran is genuinely liked backstage, with one source saying it makes no sense to not have him here, adding that some longtime stars now feel WWE isn't being loyal to people who have been loyal to the company. That word loyalty keeps surfacing again and again in how people close to this story are framing it. 19 years and it came down to a spreadsheet. So where does this actually leave things? Sheamus is a free agent for the first time since George W. Bush was in his first term. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, Sheamus is set to be a free agent. And the multi-time world champion removed all mention of WWE from his social media accounts. That's not a small gesture, that's a man cutting the cord publicly on purpose. The social media shift was immediate and deliberate. Following the news, Sheamus updated his social media accounts, removing his WWE moniker, and instead using his real name, S. Fairley, and updated his bio to simply say Pro Wrestler. No company logo attached to his name anymore. Just Stephen Fairley, wrestler, full stop. A rebrand that told fans everything before a single official statement dropped. And he didn't stop there, he addressed it himself cryptically the way he does everything. On social media, he simply posted "Hey Siri" with a knowing look, letting the internet fill in the blanks rather than issuing some long goodbye statement. That's very on brand for a guy who's never needed to shout to get attention. The obvious question now is where he lands. AEW is the natural guess, mostly because of one relationship in particular. It's easy to speculate that the Celtic Warrior is planning to make the jump to AEW, as Sheamus has several close friends in the rival company, including the former Cesaro, Claudio Castagnoli. The two men, known as The Bar in WWE, held tag team gold together on 5 different occasions. A reunion like that practically writes itself for a promotion that loves nostalgic pairings. But as we already covered, the welcome mat inside AEW isn't unanimous. The roster's already stretched thin, and adding a 48-year-old former WWE champion means someone else's TV time gets squeezed even tighter. That tension between star power and opportunity isn't going away just because one big name becomes available. There's also a version of this where he doesn't go to a big company at all. Reports floated the idea that while chances are slim, in a shocking twist, Sheamus could retire and continue his YouTube channel, ending his professional wrestling career entirely. After 19 years of bumps, surgeries, and chasing one title that never came, nobody would blame him for choosing that path instead. What we do know is that the door out of WWE is fully open, without the usual restrictions. Once he's done, he is out. There will be no 90-day non-compete. There will just be Stephen Fairley, professional wrestler, doing whatever he wants once that contract ends. No waiting period, no sitting out. Whenever his deal actually lapses, he can show up literally anywhere the very next day. Inside WWE, the aftershocks are still being felt. This wasn't an isolated incident. It's part of a wider unease building among the roster's most tenured names. Contract decisions like this can have a lasting effect on morale inside any wrestling company. And if more established names continue leaving under similar circumstances, WWE could face increasing pressure to balance financial strategy with retaining experienced performers who have played key roles for years. Sheamus wasn't the first name to walk under this new contract approach, and multiple reports suggest he won't be the last. For 19 years, Stephen Fairley built a career out of proving people wrong. The underdog from Dublin who became WWE champion in under 6 months. The monster heel who turned into one of the most beloved veterans in the locker room. The guy who never got his hands on the one title he wanted most but never stopped chasing it anyway. Now he walks into the next chapter with nothing signed, no company attached to his name, and a legacy that's already secure no matter where he lands next. Wherever Sheamus shows up next, one thing is certain. The locker room he leaves behind is watching closely, because his decision might just be the blueprint for how the next wave of WWE veterans choose to walk away too. Sources: real reason Sheamus is leaving WWE revealed what culture. Why WWE star Sheamus is reportedly leaving after nearly 19 years. Clutch points. Sheamus' WWE exit may reveal TKO's approach to veteran talent. Cage-side seats. Major update on Sheamus's WWE future. Wrestling Inc. Sheamus, 4-time world champion, set to leave WWE after contract expiration. Yahoo Sports. Sheamus is leaving WWE. MSN. Sheamus set to depart WWE. Fightful. 4 potential reasons why Sheamus is reportedly leaving WWE. Sportskeeda. Sheamus, real reason WWE legend is leaving company revealed. Give Me Sport. Sheamus WWE official profile. Breaking: Sheamus officially confirms he's done with WWE after 19 years. Sportskeeda. Further details emerge on Sheamus' WWE contract status, potential AEW interest. F4W1. Sheamus Wikipedia. How TKO is approaching veteran contracts amid Sheamus' reported departure. SI. Backstage news on why WWE offered Sheamus a restructured contract. eWrestling. New Sheamus update fuels WWE return speculation. Slam Wrestling. AEW talent unhappy about potential Sheamus signing after WWE exit WrestleZone. Sheamus leaving WWE. WrestleTalk Backstage update. Confusing details re-emerge on Sheamus' WWE contract. Men's Journal. New WWE rumors on Sheamus' future. Contract talks. Bleacher Report reason behind Sheamus shockingly departing WWE after a 19-year tenure. First Sports. Sheamus reportedly set to depart WWE. Updates. Social accounts. SI departing WWE star confirms his future with major social media change. Sportskeeda. WWE stars upset after another departure. Wrestling World. https://wrestlingworld.com/news/WWE/41424/WWE stars upset after another departure.